Today we interpret Rich Dad Poor Dad, authored by Robert Kiyosaki. This book was once hailed by the media as the starting point for mastering wealth, and many people also call it the first lesson in financial literacy. Its content mainly tells the completely different financial management and life concepts of the two fathers. It is worth mentioning that this book was published in 1997. When it was first released, the author's concept was not accepted by the public, but to this day, he has become the starting point for countless people to make money. The protagonist of the story is Kiyosaki, and he is also the author himself. He has two fathers, one is poor and the other is rich. His biological father was a well-educated, intelligent and doctoral education official. Although he is already a successful person in the eyes of most people, Kiyosaki clearly knows that his father Zhongqi was still struggling hard in the quagmire of personal financial problems throughout his life, and the rich father, who is in sharp contrast, is Kiyosaki's friend's father. Although his father and father were unable to finish the 8th grade, he was like a fish in the wave of business. With his keen sense of the market, his courageous decision-making ability and excellent investment and financial management skills, he quickly accumulated remarkable wealth, realized financial freedom early, and became a well-known local rich man. When he was young, Kiyosaki and his friend Mike were often inseparable, so Mike's father, that is, his father, would also educate him together with Kiyosaki when educating his son. Both fathers attached importance to education, but when Kiyosaki was first educated, his father was not rich, and his poor father was not poor. Their careers were just beginning and they were all fighting for money and family. However, the completely different values of the two fathers made Kiyosaki feel very contradictory. The poor father is a typical traditional working class. He hopes to study hard, get a degree, and find a good job with a high salary. In his attitude towards money, the poor father always emphasizes with a serious face that greed for money is the source of all evil, as if money is the fuse of the world's sins. In life he often says that I am not interested in money, and money is not important to me, so he talks about it. But in fact, although the poor father worked very hard, he was still overwhelmed by the family's expenses every month. The poor father did not pay attention to financial management ability, and he only saved money. Regarding investment, he always said, "Be careful and don't take risks." Whenever he encountered a place where money was used, the most things the poor father said were that I couldn't afford it. In his eyes, the security of life should be salary, retirement policies, medical subsidies, etc. However, this kind of life seems stable, but in fact it is to pin hope on others. Once you encounter financial risks in the real workplace or family, you will become precarious. On the contrary, the rich father used money as a tool to realize his dream. He firmly believed that money is strength and poverty is the foundation of all evil. Whenever he encountered a place where money was needed, the rich father never gave up easily. He always said, "How can I afford it?" and forbid his relatives from saying that I can't afford it. Rich Dad explained that when you subconsciously say that I can't afford it, your brain will stop thinking, and if you ask yourself how to afford it, your brain will move. Of course, his meaning is not to buy everything you want, but to emphasize constantly training your brain because the brain becomes more flexible the more you use it. The poor father often says, "I am not rich because I have children," while the rich father says, "I must be rich because I have children." Rich father believes in complete economic independence rather than the stability given by others. He encourages investment and attaches great importance to financial management. When a poor father teaches you how to write an impressive resume, the rich father taught him how to write ambitious career plans and financial plans, and then create opportunities for entrepreneurship. The poor father always says that I will never become a rich man, but the rich father always calls himself a rich man. He often says that I am a rich man, and the rich man will not do this. Even when he encounters bankruptcy, he still treats himself as a rich man and comforts himself that bankruptcy is only temporary, while poverty is permanent. After seeing this, I believe everyone has already understood the different values of the two fathers. Next, let's focus on explaining the concept of rich fathers. First, the rich do not work for money. The 9-year-old Kiyosaki and his good friend sell classes and are eager to make money because the schools they are all children of the rich. Although both of them have different families, they still become poor children excluded by their classmates. So Kiyosaki asked his father how to become rich. At that time, Qingqi's father was just a middle school teacher. Obviously, apart from spiritual encouragement, he could not help the two little guys get rich. So they asked Dad Mike, who runs several chains of shops and restaurants. Mike's father readily agreed to teach them how to make money, but his method made Qingqi a little unacceptable. He asked the two to give up entertainment time and go to his store to work for 3 hours every Saturday, which was about cleaning and could be paid only 30 cents. For 9-year-old Qingqi, the 30-cent reward is very low, because buying a comic book costs 10 cents. The low salary, coupled with the time, he had never seen a rich dad teach him anything. So, after persisting for 3 weeks, Qingqi decided to quit. At the same time, he also expressed his dissatisfaction to the rich father, saying that you only let me work and don't teach me to make money at all. And the salary is so low, but the rich father smiled and told him that he must say that teaching things, that is the school method. When it comes to education, life is the best teacher. Most of the time life won't say anything to you, it just pushes you around, and every time it pushes it seems like, hello, wake up, there are some things I want you to learn. If you learn the course of life, you will be at ease in doing anything. If you can't learn it, life will still push you. You should know that the rich use money as a tool to make him work for himself, while the poor and the middle class work for money. The rich father gave the two cheap wages to make them feel the taste of working for money. Faced with this situation, obedience and complaining are never real progress, and the only way to become a rich person is to change. Therefore, Qingqi's anger is exactly what the rich father is willing to see, because real learning requires energy, passion and desire to heat, and passion is the combination of anger and love. In life, most people want to make money steadily. They have no passion, only fear and greed. It is out of fear that people want to find a stable job, such as fear of not being able to pay bills, fear of being fired, fear of not having money to make a living, fear of not having money will prompt them to work hard. After getting paid, greed and desire make them constantly satisfy their consumption desires, so a pattern is formed. Get up, go to work, pay the bill, get up again, go to work and pay the bill. Even if some people are lucky enough to hit the lottery, they will still repeat this cycle with higher expenses, which is called the rat race by Father Fu. Father Fu believes that most people have been pursuing wages, salary increases and career protection throughout their lives. They never ask where this path of life that has feelings and dominates their thoughts will lead, and people who pursue salary and desires. It's like a donkey pulling a cart to chase the carrot in front of him. Although it can be seen, it can never be touched. But even so, the donkey will still pull the cart the next day, because that carrot has been in front of him. Dad Fu continued to tell the two, if you think hard work can be guaranteed just like everyone else, and think about working hard until you retire in your 60s and enjoying your old age with your pension, then I'll raise your salary to 25 cents an hour now, would you? Hearing 25 cents, Qingqi shook his head and refused, but in fact his heart was already a little shaken. But Fu's father continued to increase his quota, $1 per hour, $2 on the surface. Qingqi was still silent, but his heart began to beat wildly. After all, it was 1,956. $2 an hourly salary would make him the richest child in the world. In the end, Fu's father shouted a high price of $5. However, after hearing this price, the beating heart of the two children gradually recovered from the bottleneck because the bid was too high. At that time, many adults might not have such solid hearts. It was in this way that Dad Fu told them that everyone's soul has a weak and poor side, and a strong and firm side that cannot be bought by money. If you want to avoid the trap of rat race, you must learn to control your fears and desires. We must master the laws of money operation, rather than become slaves to money. Afterwards, Dad Fu asked them to go back and continue working, and this time there was no penny. Dad Fu said, the sooner you forget your salary, the easier your future life will be. As long as you think with your mind, you will soon find that there is a way to make money than to get a salary. You will see things that others cannot see. These words from Dad Fu benefited the two of them a lot. In the next few weeks, while thinking they worked for Father Fu for free, because they had no salary, they no longer fantasized about what to buy after getting their salary. Therefore, they had more time to observe. It was this mentality that made Ching-Chi discover something that he had seen before but never cared about. On that day, Ching-Chi saw Mrs. Martin, a salesperson in the store, dealing with some old books that cannot be sold. Mrs. Martin tear the cover of the comic book in half, leaving half of the cover to hand it over to the bookseller. As a proof that there is no sale, the rest is thrown away as garbage, so Ching-Chi fought with the bookseller, asked if he could give them those comic books. He had no choice but to hear the request from his 2 children. The bookseller generously agreed. The premise was that they promised not to conduct a secondary sale. The 2 of them later cleaned up the empty house in the basement of Mike's house. A simple comic book reading room was established, and for 10 hearts and $1, he hired Mike's sister as a librarian. In this way, the comic book reading room started to open, and they charged 10 cents to each child who came to read books in the reading room. You can watch it for 2 hours each time, which is already very cheap for the kids because you can only buy 1 comic for 10 cents. And 2 hours are enough for them to read 5 or 6 books, and in this way, the reading room can earn them an average of $9.50 a week. This money is a considerable income in the eyes of the 2 children. The most important thing is, when the 2 were not there, he still made money, although the reading room was only open for 3 months due to accidents. But it still lets the 2 children learn what it means to use money for themselves. Seeing this, Hylan couldn't help but sigh that we often work hard for some small interests in front of us, but they ignore their long-term goals and value pursuits. Many people are like this mouse. He only walks forward without stopping but rarely stops to think. After all, the life we want cannot be accumulated through ineffective efforts, without deep thinking. Diligence becomes a cage that traps us, as Dad Fu said. Unthinking efforts are the root of our poverty soon. Dad Fu taught them their second concept of wealth, assets and liabilities. Before explaining assets and liabilities, let's take a look at the poor. Compared with the cash flow of the middle class and the wealthy, the cash flow of most poor people is very simple. They have no assets, no liabilities, their income is only wages. The expenditure includes all expenses such as food, clothing, housing and transportation. And the cash flow of a middle class may be like this. Similarly, wages are their entire income, the difference is that the salary is higher. Expenditures are also food, clothing, housing and transportation, etc., and they still have not purchased assets. But there are debt projects such as credit cards, mortgages, and car loans. Finally, let's take a look at the cash flow of the rich, which is different from the salary. Their income forms are diverse, including passive income, investment income, for example, rent, dividends, interest, royalties, etc. At the same time, they have a large amount of assets and a small amount of liabilities. This is also the reason for the rich father-in-law. Rich dad said that rich people get assets. The poor and the middle class are in debt. But they think that those liabilities are assets. So what are assets and what are liabilities? Rich dad said that assets are things that can put money in your pocket. And debt is something that takes money out of your pocket. Take real estate as an example. If you buy a house with a loan, on the surface, only a part of the amount is needed at this stage. You can own a house. While we enjoyed it, it is also equivalent to accumulating assets, even if you don't want to live. You can still sell it when the housing prices rise. It's a good thing no matter how you look at it. But is it really that simple? For ordinary working families, 30 years of mortgage and high interest rates, it means you can't lose your job. Only work hard. Because your cash is constantly flowing from expenses too. More importantly, you can't have other ideas for adventure. Thus, the opportunity to receive education is lost. Just like a mouse racing on a roller. When income and expenditures remain in moderation, it means you can't have money to invest. Therefore, investment experience cannot be obtained. I will never become a mature investor. Someone will say at this time, I don't have a loan. I'm paying full. That's the asset. But it is still a liability. Because it cannot generate passive benefits for you. Especially from the current housing price trend. Long-term holding. the chance of losing is greater. And you also have to pay for property and maintenance every month. Dad Fu believes that buying a house in full is a very painful thing. Because if you use this money to buy assets that can increase value, it is entirely possible to create the cash flow required to pay for the house. Not to mention the car. When you pay, its value may have already lost 30%. In Father Fu's opinion, the real asset should be stocks, bond, real estate that generates income, notes with interest, books, the royalty of music or patents, businesses that can operate normally without being present, and anything else worthy, can generate income or have value-added potential. And there are good sales. Someone may say at this time, I know all of what you said. The problem is high-quality assets. It's not my turn to buy it. Everyone should understand. When everyone can see making money, no money making. We are not the sons of destiny. Want to walk ahead. Not just thinking. Can observe. Also has a keen vision and a lot of experience. All these require time to learn. Go to try and error. Go to grow. Thinking of relying on a book. One video can make a lot of money. The result can be imagined. Dad Fu said, blind investment may be a liability. Only mature investments are real assets. If you put your money into a transaction, then pray that he can help you make money. Then you're gambling. But if you know clearly what you are doing, this is not gambling. In any investment, the way to succeed is to use your technology, knowledge, wisdom, and my love for this investment to reduce accidents, reduce risk. Certainly, risk always exists, but financial intelligence can improve your ability to deal with accidents. This often happens. It may be a high risk for a person. It may be just a low risk for another person. So you have to learn to control risks, instead of always thinking about avoiding risks. The third concept of Dad Fu is to pay attention to his own career. For an ordinary person, nowadays consumption traps are prevalent. The era of overwhelming marketing, how to accumulate original capital, become the most critical step. And before that, we must first understand the difference between work and career. Our work represents income, but the focus of the career is assets. Dad Fu said, for financial security, the key points we need to pay attention to. It's a career, not a job. In life, we often hear, I want a salary increase. How great would it be if I could be promoted? I want to take the postgraduate entrance examination in order to find a better job. I'm going to do part-time jobs, etc. Indeed, these ideas are also wise. But these ideas just revolve around earning wages. It has nothing to do with the career of the asset. So, it has nothing to do with real financial freedom. Dad Fu said, work is just a temporary solution to long-term problems. As an ordinary employee of the company, you can't put all your focus on your work. We need to know what assets we are pursuing. For example, what you are pursuing is royalties, can write a book, create music. If you don't have this talent, you can also study stocks, bond, or a certain entrepreneurial project. We set the assets we pursue as a long-term goal. It is clear that the current work is only part of our plan. Hearing this, some might say, this is too tiring. It's better to spend your life lying flat on the ground. But in the nature of poverty, we have said, there are also a lot of risks in a dull life. For example, health and accidents. Since we have been busy all day long for work, why not change your busy partner to your career? Dad Fu said, how much money you make doesn't matter. What matters is how much money you can leave behind. Those who have learned from a very early age that there is a difference between work and career. They are working for the company on the surface. Actually, it's accumulating energy for yourself. They silently accumulate their abilities. Pay attention to your growth silently. Silently accumulating original capital. Wait until one day they have achieved success in their studies. Complete accumulation. Then he will leave the company. Break into the world by yourself. Realize freedom of life. On the contrary, some people, I've been working on a limited salary all my life. They're so careless. Muddle along. All my life can only stand still. In Father Fu's opinion, if you start to accumulate at a young age, it's easier for you to get rich. Just like saving at the age of 20. Between those who start saving at the age of 30, there is indeed a huge difference. But these are not the most important things in Father Fu's opinion. Dad Fu believes that are only one. It is also the most important asset. It's our mind. If the brain is well trained, maybe a lot of wealth can be created in a flash. In the rapidly developing information age, money will grow exponentially. Some people rely on just some ideas and so-called contracts. You can get rich overnight without money. Compared with the means of saving, it seems inefficient and slow. An example is given in this book. Out of the 1990s, the economy of Phoenix in the United States is a mess. The financial planners at that time suggested that everyone save money. Good. Take out a sum of money every month to save it. Sounds like a good idea. But this is just an option. A choice that most people are willing to take. Same. This choice will blind people's eyes. It makes people unable to see the truth of the matter. So I missed a lot. Opportunities to increase funds significantly. Although the economy is in a downturn. But for investors, this is a great market opportunity. Qingqi is one of them. He knew that he could not miss this investment plan. But because his money is all in the stock and real estate markets, there is no cash in hand. Then, he relied on the contract to do a few 5-book deals. At that time, the house originally worth $100,000. Now it's only worth $75,000. But Qingqi did not buy real estate in the conventional way. He chose to go to the bankruptcy firm and the court to negotiate business. Here, a house worth $75,000. Sometimes you can buy it for $20,000 or less. When the purchase program starts, after paying a deposit of $2,000 to the attorney, Qingqi published an advertisement for the interview in the newspaper, claiming to pay a down payment of $60,000 is zero. The $75,000 home is for sale. Soon, his phone was blown up. After selecting the buyer, the house was sold within minutes. On the surface, Qingqi bought it for $20,000. Sold for $60,000. Net profit of $40,000. But in fact, he just paid a deposit of $2,000. And the deposit of $2,000 was borrowed by a friend. He just paid $200 in interest. The most important thing is, all the working hours of this transaction are accumulated in only 5 hours. That's all. In this seemingly depressed market, Qingqi and his wife used their spare time to make 6 such simple transactions. Net profit of $190,000. Think about it. If you accumulate it by work, how long will it take to save this $190,000? Someone will ask at this time, if the buyer doesn't pay, what should I do? There is indeed such a thing. But it's good news. The house costing $60,000. After being reclaimed, it can still be resold for $70,000. Some people say, isn't this a modern real estate agency? Yet, with the advent of the information age, thousands of buyers are looking for such a deal. This method is no longer applicable. But although the market has changed, but always full of opportunities, this is why we need to improve our financial literacy ability. This is an era where you work by your brain rather than physical strength. Improve financial intelligence and be with the brave, instead of joining the backwards. At last, let's take a look at the advice given by Dad Fu. How to awaken your financial talent. Article 1. The power of the spirit. If you ask someone if you want to get rich or get financial freedom, most people will say they are willing. But when you return to reality, the road to wealth seems to have become rough and long. Take a pen and brush your phone. Playing games easily. This time, a strong reason and goal is extremely important. When you don't know what your motivation is, Dad Fu suggested some examples that can be given to the desires. For example, I don't want to be a working person for the rest of my life. I don't want to be busy all my life. In the end, nothing was left. I don't want to wait for the risk to come. I can't compete with it myself. Secondly, I want to live the way I like. I want to freely control my time and life. I want money to work for me. The power of these spirits seems simple, but they are extremely difficult. In Father Fu's opinion, if you don't have a strong reason, no need to read this book anymore, because it seems like a very difficult job. The second point, the power of choice. Our habit of spending money reflects what kind of people we are. The reason why the poor are poor is because they have bad consumption habits. Dad Fu said, most people will not choose to be rich, as for 90% of people, too many worries to be a rich man. So they said, I'm not interested in money. Or I'm not worried. I'm still young. When I start making money, consider waiting in the future. However, there is a common problem with these statements. That is, they prevent people from thinking about two things. The first is time. This is your most precious asset. The second is learning. Because you don't have money, I need to learn more. In fact, we should make a choice every day. Choose to study. Choose to grow. Choose to be a rich man. In Father Fu's opinion, want to be rich? Invest in education. He believes that the only real asset we have is our brain. This is what we can control, and the most powerful tool. As we grow up, everyone has to choose what kind of knowledge should be learned. In terms of investment, most people choose to invest directly, instead of learning how to invest before investing. I often see people saying, read a book, a certain video, just go buy stocks, start a business, how much money have you lost, etc. All I can say is, this is actually gambling, not an investment. For example, Qingqi likes stocks and real estate. He will often attend seminars related to it, or listen to the audio of the investment master. He often asks himself, what would Buffett do about this? Or what would Peter Lynch do? Therefore, Qingqi suggests that people should read, participate in training and other methods to improve your financial literacy. Learn the way of thinking and action of successful people, while imitating its methods and strategies. Also avoid mistakes and traps they have made. At the same time, we must also constantly expand our knowledge and horizons. Confidence and ability. Only in this way, only by being able to be at ease in the complex and changeable financial environment, achieve financial freedom. The third point, the power of self-discipline. This is the most difficult to grasp. At the same time, it is also a rich man. The primary factor that distinguishes the poor from the middle class. Simply put, those who are not very confident, people who have poor financial pressure, never become rich. As mentioned earlier, the reason why life can push you around, it's not because the power of life is very strong. It's because you lack self-discipline. Self-discipline, this seemingly simple word, It actually contains profound meaning. It requires us to constantly be with our nature. Inert struggle. This is undoubtedly a difficult task. As few people say on the road, self-discipline is the key to solving life problems. Lack of self-discipline. I can't get rid of difficulties and challenges. Those who are well-versed in self-discipline, it is often more determined. The last point. Learn to dominate money correctly. In today's consumer world, due to various external temptations, so most people are prone to spending money upward. Because of weak will, the outflow of money is simply unrestrained. This is the poverty of most people, and the reason for struggling in financial trouble. An example is given in the book. The children of relatives and friends have developed the bad habit of spending money randomly. He wanted to buy a car when he was just 16 years old. The reason is, my friend's parents bought cars for them. Then, he wanted to use the money saved by way to go to college as the richest man. Go buy a car. My friend called for help. After listening to the suggestion, my relatives asked if he could use his desire to have a car to motivate him to learn something. My friend suddenly felt a sudden illumination after hearing this. Go home quickly. Back home. My friend first. How to spend money wisely and have a long talk with my son. Then he subscribed to his son to the Wall Street Journal and some books on the stock market. Finally tell him. You can give him $3,000 as startup capital. But he can't just use the money to buy a car. He can use this money to buy and sell stocks. You can also hire a stockbroker. When he adds $3,000 to $6,000, you can use the right money to buy a car. The original $3,000 is still used in his university education. At first his son was lucky in the deal. But after a few days he lost all the money from Zhengdao. But this also made him interested. When the principal of the loss reaches $1,000, his interest became even greater. Not only did I finish reading all the books my father bought for him, I also went to the library to borrow books and read. He read the Wall Street Journal as hungry. Pay attention to market trends. And when his principal was only $1,000, his interests and learning ends are extremely high. He knew that if he lost all the money, it will take another 2 years to buy a car. But now he doesn't care about this anymore. I'm not even interested in buying a car. Because he found a more interesting game. My friend thinks this is his education. The best costs $3,000. What his son learns from it will benefit him for life. The author believes that when desire comes, use the desire to consume to stimulate and use your financial literacy to invest. Instead of applying for a loan, use your own debt to buy what we want. Money is a powerful force. But unfortunately, some people let the power of money deal with themselves in reverse. If your financial literacy is low, money will surpass you. He will be smarter than you. If you are not as smart as money, you will work for him for the rest of your life. Here. This book is over.